Welcome back to another episode of Better Than I Found It, the podcast all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. Today's guest on Better Than I Found It is longtime TCU golf coach Bill Montigel. Bill, who's been at TCU for 36 seasons, will be retiring following this year's NCAA championship. He was also recently inducted into the Golf Coaches Association Hall of Fame last week in Las Vegas. I really enjoyed this interview, but what struck me most about Bill was his humility. I think his success is really directly related to how he's consistently surrounded himself with great people that have helped make his players better. Plus, Bill is just a really good guy. Enjoy the listening. All right, Better Than I Found It listeners, let's all welcome Hall of Fame golf coach Bill Montigel of TCU to the podcast. Bill, thanks for joining me today.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you and I have been good buddies for a long, long time. And so I've been wanting to do this interview with you. Good colleagues, good competitors we've been through the years. But Hall of Famer, that really has a nice ring to it, doesn't it, Bill?
Well, it was very exciting when I learned that I was going to get on the Hall of Fame. It's something that I really feel like that I don't know if I honestly deserve. There's so many people along the way that have helped me. But yeah, I was very appreciative, and it was a very special night.
Well, for those listening, Bill was just inducted just a few days ago at the Golf Coaches Association convention in Las Vegas. Bill went in with 3 or 4 other great candidates. And, you know, Bill, congratulations. That's something I know has been a long time coming and you've deserved. And after 36 years of coaching at TCU for the men's golf program, I think it's well-deserved. And for the success that we're going to talk about here in just a little bit, you've been hugely successful. But before we talk about the fact that you are a Hall of Famer, before we go into that even further, you're going to be retiring after this year's NCAA championship after 36 great years at TCU. There's so much to talk about, so much success. Before we do that, though, my listeners mostly probably do not know that you were a basketball coach, a college basketball coach, before you became a golf coach at TCU. Let's talk about how you got into that.
Well, my start is actually probably a lot different than most college golf coaches out there. I actually never played golf in college. I got the job at TCU. I came originally as the assistant basketball coach, and I was working for a guy by the name of Jim Killingsworth. Jim Killingsworth was actually my college coach, but I came here in 1979, and I did that for 8 years. And after the 8 years, I was incredibly lucky, but I was offered the golf job, and I've been the golf coach, here since.
So, Jim, you played for him, so you knew him as a coach when you were a player, and then you coached with him. You started at Oklahoma State with Jim Killingsworth. I remember actually you being there. I was a big Oklahoma State fan, and I remember those days. But during that period of time when you coached with him in basketball, which is quite a few years, is there anything you gleaned from him, anything you picked up from him that's helped you be a better golf coach?
You know, the thing that was the most fun about working for Coach Killingsworth is that he absolutely I never saw him to blame anybody for anything else. He always just came into the office every day, and he always had a little game plan, and he was so organized. And he would talk about what we were going to try to do, and it was just sort of a process. And every day he kind of had a plan of what we were going to do that day. And so I think the one thing I learned from him more than anything was, you really need to be organized. And so I kind of started from that time. And if I was ever overwhelmed with something, I'd take a little yellow pad out and I'd write down everything that I needed to do. And I was actually kind of put like how much time I thought it would take. And then as the day went on, it was very fun for me because I'd cross off something. And then by the end of the day, most of those things got crossed off. If they didn't, then I could start it and do it the next day. But every day I had this pad, and everybody kind of make fun of me. But I kind of got that from him because that's what he did. He was just so organized with all the things that he did.
That's funny because Mikhail, my assistant, he laughs at me because I do the same thing. I still have, in fact, Bill, you can see this right here on this interview. There's a yellow legal pad. I was working on it this morning. And I was trying to get ready for this podcast interview with you, and I had written down everything. In fact, I'm reading some notes off of a yellow legal pad of notes I made this morning. I think it's great. I learned very much the same from Mike Holder, different things like that. You pick up something, and Jim wasn't a golf coach, but his coaching has actually helped you be a better coach too. But you said your story was a little different because you came to college golf coaching without being a true golfer. Dave Williams won 16 national championships at Houston, and he never played golf. There's a lot of coaches that have been successful that aren't necessarily great golfers, because when it comes right down to it, it gets down to recruiting, organizational skills, like you just talked about, knowing humans, how humans operate and how they work. And I think you do a great job of that. But you're talked about as one of the best recruiters in college golf. I've said it for years. I believe it. And I've watched it happen. But, I'm going to ask you, what are some of the things you learned from recruiting basketball that make you a better recruiter in golf? But I'm going to tell you, Mike Holder told me on numerous occasions, if there was ever a player he truly wanted and he was going against you, he did not beat you. He thought he was over against you. Now, I want you to tell, is there any truth to that?
Well, Coach Holder is very kind, and I love him dearly. But the truth of the matter is, if Coach really wanted a guy, he was going to get him. There were several guys that ended up coming to TCU, but it would be more of a situation where I offered the kid a full scholarship, and the kid knew that he was going to get to play here every time versus going to Oklahoma State and he was going to get books or something like that. But, I know we're going to talk more about Coach Holder here in a bit, but I love him dearly. But to think that I went 13-0 against him, I don't think that's quite true.
Well, that's the way he remembers it. So that's just what I'm going with. It's the story. I do know this. We went up against you in my days as an assistant coach on about 3 players. I don't know how badly Mike Holder wanted them, but I know we lost in all 3 of them. And I know all 3 came on a visit. So to Stillwater. So I don't know. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. Maybe you won about 6 or 7 battles. He won 6 or 7 battles. Who knows? But he remembers it as 0-13 for him. But no, what did you learn from recruiting basketball players do you think that's made you a better, because you are a good recruiter, whether you want to admit it or not? I know you're too humble. What were some of the things you did well in basketball recruiting that translated over to golf?
Well, this is going to be kind of a funny story, but when I first started out as assistant basketball coach here, that was really my primary role with the program, was recruiting. I wasn't the guy that was in the team practices and working with them on X's and O's. I was always out every day. I had a different plan to go see somebody. And a lot of the kids in the beginning when I was at Oklahoma State were actually kids from Oklahoma City or Tulsa. And so I would spend the day going over there. And what I tried to do was surround myself with the entire situation. I tried to get to know the kid's counselor, tried to get to know who the different people who were involved. Every kid's got somebody that's influencing them. It could be their parents. It could be a sister. It could be, somebody in the community. It could be somebody at the church. So I basically spend the entire day just going around and trying to surround myself with everybody that was going to make an influence on that young man. And so I think in the beginning that kind of served me well, because I realized that it wasn't just going out and trying to recruit the particular person. It was trying to surround myself with everybody that was going to make a difference. And so we got really lucky. This kid in Oklahoma City, his name was Matt Clark. And Matt Clark's the first guy that I ever tried to really surround myself with. And it was kind of funny because I would go to all the games and watch him play. I would go to his home. And back in the day, they didn't have any limitations. You could go watch a kid play 1,000 times. You could have 100 bumps. You could go visit him all you want. And most of the times that I went there, the coaches from Oklahoma were there, Dave Bliss and those coaches and John Underwood. But anyway, to make a long story short, Oklahoma State, and we signed the guy. And in the headlines in the Oklahoma Daily paper said something like, Jim Killingsworth pulls off major recruiting coup, getting Matt Clark, and it was made a huge deal. And Coach Killingsworth came into me and he said, that's just kind of the way it is. I'm going to get all the credit. I said, Coach, I get it. I understand. He said, but everybody knows that you're the one that was able to sign this guy. And that's kind of where I got my start, and it's where I got some credibility, is because Matt decided to come. And I actually still stay in touch with Matt today because he's an awesome guy. So anyway, that's kind of where it all sort of started.
Well, I mean, I remember watching Matt Clark play basketball games. I would go to Stillwater and watch the Cowboys play basketball. I remember, so I didn't, to this day, I didn't know that you were the one that actually got him there. But so, I did a little bit of that with Ricky Fowler. I tried to go out and surround myself with all the people that were important in Ricky's life. And it included counselors and an instructor and people at the range and people at the golf course. Just all kinds of people that were important to him. I think coaches in recruiting underestimate how important that is, because it's still a relationship situation. You want to know who's important in this kid's life.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, that's really how from the beginning, that's how I did it. And that's how I did it actually when I came to TCU and started doing golf, is I try to surround myself. I didn't make it a point to go visit 4 guys on one day. It was like, okay, this is my guy this day. Okay, where can I go next? And so I would go everywhere. And sometimes you would make a call and you'd go see somebody. It could be his country club pro. Those guys have a lot of influence on him. It could be, his aunt. It could be his cousin. There's no telling who could make a difference on the guy. And so I think that was the key of what I did, was just surround myself with the entire situation and try to develop a relationship with them. And, as the year went on, I would keep those guys involved. And, sometimes it worked out good and they would come, and, sometimes it didn't. But I mean, that's what I did.
Well, you did a great job of it. That's no doubt about it. We all learned a little bit from you on that. So you got to TCU as a basketball coach. You spent many years working with Coach Killingsworth in basketball. How did the golf job come available to you? Because it's not often you're coaching basketball and then all of a sudden they say, hey, why don't you coach the men's golf team? How did that come about?
Well, what happened was after I was here about 3 or 4 years, the NCAA changed their recruiting rules. So it went from 365 days a year where you could literally do whatever you wanted. They changed it to where you could only go out certain time periods. And one of the time periods that you couldn't go out was, I don't even know what month it was, but let's say July. So you couldn't go out and do any recruiting in July. So Coach Killingsworth came to myself and our other assistant, Charlie Finsky, and he said, well, what we're going to do every morning, we're going to go in the mornings and we're going to get organized. We're going to come up with different people that we're going to recruit. We're going to just kind of have a plan. But after lunch, he said, I'm going to go to the golf course. And he said, you guys have your choice. In the old days, you guys used to go do home visits and you guys used to go around and watch them play in gyms. But now we can't do that. So he said, I'm going to go to the golf course. You have your choice. You can go play golf with me, or you can go back into the office. And Charlie Finsky and myself kind of looked at ourselves and said, well, I'd much rather be in the golf course than be in the office, because what I always liked was going out and, going to people's homes or going to the gym and watching them play. But we couldn't do that for the month. So we literally went out every day in the afternoons and played golf. And I'll never forget the first time I played was at Ridgely men's course. And there were several holes that you got to have a little bit of a carry, like 100 yards carry or something. I mean, I couldn't get the ball in the air. I mean, we're just slapping the ball all over the place. It was so much fun. And as time got on, I kind of got hooked on golf. And so then I found that in my spare time, I would get a shag bag and I'd go to a park somewhere and try to practice a little bit. And so then I really honestly got hooked on golf. And as I got hooked on golf, I started following golf. And somewhere in there, Fred Warren, who was the coach at East Tennessee, got the golf job at TCU. And I actually was single at the time, and I had a room. And so he rented this room out for me for like $100 a month. But we'd always be talking about recruiting, and he'd always be talking about Dave Williams and how Dave Williams was his best recruiter ever. And I always asked him, like, what did he do so good? And because I kind of used some of that same stuff that in golf that Dave Williams used in golf I used some of that same stuff in basketball. But so that's kind of how it sort of started there. And as time went on, Fred left, at TCU, and a guy by the name of Bill Woodley came to TCU. And Bill Woodley did a great job. He actually had some good teams. They won the Southwest Conference. And after they won the Southwest Conference, was kind of a little domino effect, but the Arkansas job opened up. Steve Loy, who was kind of the coach at Arizona State, but also Phil Mickelson's agent, he left Arkansas to go to Arizona State. And at that same time, Bill Woodley went to Arkansas. And so I went into our athletic director, and this was like maybe mid-March. And, you know, our basketball team was rolling. We were winning the Southwest Conference. We actually went on to win the Southwest Conference. And I asked him, I said, I'd like to apply for that golf job. And he said, well, right now, let's finish up this basketball strong. And he said, well, we'll talk more. Anyway, make a long story short, at the end, our basketball team went to the NCAA tournament. First round, we beat Marshall, ended up losing to Notre Dame. But right about that same time period, Jim Killingsworth has announced his retirement, and I got the golf job.
Wow. You never dreamed you'd be a golf coach.
No, I never even really thought about it. The only thing I kind of knew is that I loved TCU. TCU, it was great to me. Those were really some fun years in basketball. So I loved TCU. And my wife and I had a little one. We were married in 1985. So, this is 2 years later that I got the golf job. But, we had a child that was 2. And, I had no idea what I was going to do. And I got this opportunity. They came in and told me you're going to get $13,000. And, back in the day, I was like happy. I was so excited. I had absolutely no idea how golf worked. I knew about the recruiting part because I kind of ran that by Fred, but I didn't know it was like you go to a tournament and there's 12 teams and it's going to be 5 guys and you count 4 scores, and I had no clue.
So here you are, a basketball coach, hooked on golf. You love the game, and now you become the golf coach at a major institution. You had to seek some advice from somebody. You didn't just learn all of this trial and error. Surely you called some coaches.
Well, you're absolutely right. And it's not only did I seek some help, that's kind of what I've done my entire career, was seek help. And I don't know if I have one original idea. Everything that I did was like seek from somebody else. But actually, the first phone call that I made and the person that I called was Mike Holder. Mike Holder was the golf coach at Oklahoma State, and I actually, previously being up there, knew who he was. He knew who I was, and I asked him. I said, is there any way I could come and work your golf camp? He said, what do you want to work my golf camp for? And I said, well, I just got the golf job at TCU. And I'll never forget. He goes, you got to be kidding me. I said, no. And he said, well, yeah, come up here and work the camp. So I said, I'll work it for free. I just want to come up there. And a lot of the golfers at Oklahoma State were at that camp, and it was unbelievable how nice they were, and how much. Here these guys are all Americans, and they're some of the best golfers in the country, and they were so nice to me, and it was incredible. And so I built some really good relationships at those camps, and I know through the years, I actually ended up working those camps for 20 years. And, like there was different people. John Fields worked those camps. At the time, he was the head coach at New Mexico, and he went on to go to Texas, but he was there. And I remember you being there for a lot of those years. And
oh yeah,
to be honest with you were a huge influence on me, because I'll never forget the day's over with. And I'm exhausted, and it's time to go to bed, and you're in their office and your room there in the dorm, and you got a million things going, and you've got pieces of paper all over the place that phone calls from parents or whatever you're doing, and recruits, and so you were a huge influence on me. And then there was other people there, Bruce Hepler, who ended up going to the Georgia Tech and doing an incredible job, and he was there. And Cricket Mush, at the time, he was the golf coach at Texas El Paso, and all these people had made a huge impression on me. But I feel like I wasn't afraid to go up and ask them questions, and I think I learned from every single one of them.
That's one of my great things. I think in our profession, we do share information. We do help each other out. It's really, really cool. I've never known a coach who got to the top or got to a level where it was really high elite level of college coaching that didn't have shoulders that he stood on, on the way up. But what's most striking about that whole process you just talked about, you were making $13,000 a year and you were offering to go work for free. Bill, you can't work for free when you only make 13,000. What are you doing?
Well, I just knew that my idea of college golf is that Mike Holder was the best, Oklahoma State's program was the best, and I just felt like if I could go there for a week, I would probably learn so much stuff that I could take with me and bring back. And I did, because that some of the questions I asked him were so dummied down. I said, like, okay, coach, like, what do you do? It's like, well, we have tournaments. Okay, so we go to tournaments. I'm like, how many guys do you take? Well, normally we take 5. We're like, how do you decide who's going to go? And so then I never heard of qualifying. We don't do qualifying in basketball. So he started talking about, we would have qualifyings, and, it's time I would ask different people different questions. And, there was a guy at that camp that probably made the bigger difference than everybody. And it was a guy by the name of Tommy Moore. And Tommy Moore, American and a golfer, and went to Oklahoma State. And for some reason, we hit it off. And I asked Tommy, I said, is there any way you'd come down and, I'll try to get some money together, and maybe you could do like a little seminar for the guys. And gosh, I got Tommy Moore to come down so many times to the TCU. And then eventually I got him to come to some tournaments with us. And, he would have a yardage book. And I don't know, what's a yardage book? I didn't know what a yardage book was. And so he started talking to him about doing a yardage book and kind of having a game plan and basically taking it one shot at a time. And so I learned so much in the beginning from so many people. Unfortunately, as time went on, Tommy passed away from kind of a blood infection, but I actually think about him a lot. And I love that guy. And he was really kind of instrumental in the beginning, but it was all because of Coach Holder letting me go to this camp and meeting guys like you and meeting guys like Bruce Hepler and John Fields. And I was lucky that I got to surround myself with so many really awesome people.
Well, you say that. I always encourage young coaches that ask me, what do I do to get connected or whatever? Work golf camps. Be the best employee at the golf camp. Ask the most questions. Be the most efficient. Have the best attitude, whatever it is. Golf camp can change your life. It sounds like it definitely changed your coaching life. So you mentioned Tommy Moore. So Tommy Moore was one of the people you surrounded yourself with. You told me one time, you said, hey, all I ever tried to do was surround myself with guys that are smarter than me. And so Tommy was one of those people. But you worked a lot of years without an assistant coach. What you had to do was get guys like Tommy and several others that I'd like you to talk about right now that were volunteer assistants, and how that was beneficial to you.
I was very lucky because I never had an assistant coach until my current head coach, current assistant associate coach, Adrian Moore. But through the years, it seemed like there was a different person every year or so that would kind of pop up. One of those guys was actually Alan Bratton, who's the current coach at Oklahoma State. And we all know what a great job he's done at Oklahoma State. And, he's won a national title. He was an All-American there. He played for coach for a bunch of years, but he actually was working on trying to be a professional. And kind of towards the end of that time, we'd see him out of Mira Vista a lot. And he said, I think I might like to get into coaching. So, gosh, I'd love to have you around. So I said, I got golf balls. I'll give you golf balls if you'll come and help me, or something so silly like that. And so he came over, and he was great with the guys, and he spent a lot of time with them. And I remember each one of those guys, I picked up a little something from. I remember one of the things I kind of remember from Alan Bratton. He had a little meeting with the guys because I let him do all the talking, and he said, guys, quit worrying what the par is. Just play the hole the best way you can play it. He says, who cares if it's a par 5, it's a par 3, if it's a par 8, just go play the hole, and let's do the best job on every shot that you can, and forget the par. So I kind of remembered that my whole career, and now kind of like when somebody says, what's the par on the hole? Like who cares? I remember Alan told me it didn't matter. So, that was one of the things I picked up from him, but we've been friends ever since. And, obviously he went on to Ping and was awesome there. And then came to Oklahoma State, and I don't know exactly how it started, but for a while there, he helped with the women, and now he's the men's coach and, one of the best in the business.
He is. There's no question. Honestly, until you just told me that, I didn't realize that Alan had worked. I knew he lived in Fort Worth for a time when he was playing pro golf, and that he was playing at Mira Vista who the head pro and director of golf at the time was Lindy Miller, a former Oklahoma State golfer. But that's a great story. I didn't know you got Alan his start in coaching.
Well, it's funny too because I remember we had a place called Whitestone one day, and I can't even tell you how bad the weather was. It was unbelievable. And Alan's out there; he's out there the whole time, all 18 holes. And I go, like, you think we should like keep playing? He goes, absolutely. He said, you play through anything. It doesn't really matter. You just keep on. This will make them tougher. And yeah, so I mean, like I know he got a lot of that from Coach Holder, but I mean, it didn't. So from that day on, it didn't matter what the weather was like. We played golf in it, and So.
Well, that's something I've learned growing up in Oklahoma. I had a lot of cold, windy days we had to coach and play in. Greg Sands, Texas Tech, doing an amazing job right now. He played for you, and he was your volunteer assistant.
Yeah, Greg played for TCU, and he graduated from TCU. And when his time was up playing, he came into the office, and we always had a very close relationship as a player coach. And he asked if he could help. And my gosh, I didn't even know what I was going to have him do, but I said, absolutely, I'd love to have you. And Greg will tell this story. It's a kind of a stupid story, but at the time, we didn't have computers. We didn't have very good ways of putting stuff, saving stuff. Yeah, it was basically whatever the coach did. But in my bottom drawer, every time somebody would call me, I'd write his phone number on it. And I had all these pieces of paper. There's like hundreds of them. And they were sticking in the bottom drawer. And I said, I pulled all these pieces of paper out. They're kind of cut up, and I had Mike McGraw on it or Coach Holder or whatever. I said, see if you could like organize this, put this on there. So I think he just thought I was crazy. And so he actually went home, and him and his wife, he goes, look what Coach wants me to do. He wants me to put all these little pieces of paper and put it into like a nice organized, a sheet where he can find everything. So that's kind of how it got started. And then he started helping me with the guys. He started going on the trips with us. And he was the most spiritual guy. He was great for me. He was somebody that was always positive. And there was no doubt that he was going to end up being a great golf coach. And he helped me there for several years. And he ended up going out to Texas Tech. And, the rest is kind of history. I mean, here, I don't know if it was 3 weeks ago, a month, their team was ranked #1 in the country. And he's done just an amazing job. His teams have gone on to, the match play three different times. I think the world of him, and I mean, he's going to have a great career. He's got a wonderful family, and he still loves TCU. We talk almost every day about different things, and he's the guy that right today that I run stuff off of. And I mean, every time he's got an answer, it's like, God, that makes sense. I don't know why I couldn't have thought of that. So yeah, I think that's really Greg.
Well, you and I are from a different generation. He's from a younger generation. They are creative thinkers. My associate head coach, Mikkel Andreessen, is like really, really creative and smart. And I think he, along with Greg, just have a different way of looking at things. You and I are still writing things down on paper, right? So, but no, Greg is an outstanding, and it's crazy that he got into coaching as a volunteer assistant because the only way he could get into coaching. Nick Raffel, who used to work for Callaway, talk about him because I know he was a big influence on your program as well.
I can't even remember what year that Nick came, but I remember that he was here when Paul Barjon played for me. And Nick came in, and Nick was kind of a promotions guy. And I tell you what, we kind of actually put a book together, and I saved it, and it's really fun. It's called Nickisms, because he has got more one-liners than anybody there is. And he was an incredible influence on him. And I remember the thing that Nick did for the program, and he helped me out a lot because I think as time gone on, I got awfully conservative. I was always trying to get the guys to hit an iron off the tee or, encourage them and practice rounds. And Nick goes, we need to open this up. We need to be the most aggressive team there is. We need to be the team that, yeah, you might hit driver and it might get you in trouble somewhere, but just, let's bring it out. And so we started hitting driver all the time. And his philosophy was that shot will decide where the next shot's going to be. So if you hit the driver good and it was way down there, great. Just push it down the golf course as much as you can. And at that point, we'll decide what the next club's going to be. If they're in the middle of the fairway, all right, we're going to be aggressive. We're not going to short side ourselves, but we're going to try to get ourselves an opportunity to make birdie. If you happen to get into the rough or you happen to get yourself in a bad spot, then we'll deal with it the best way we can. We'll try to get ourselves out of trouble, and then we'll proceed with the hole. So I think he really helped at a time when I really needed him, and we've kind of taken that stance. And I guarantee you that's helped us a lot at regionals and just in tournaments by just being a lot more aggressive and just hitting driver a lot more.
I love it. We've got a stat on our team that we use. The guy that uses the driver chooses it the most off the tee. We like that stat. We love a guy who hits a driver.
Right.
Travis Wolf, he played for you as well, and I think he's helping you out right now, isn't he?
Travis is our volunteer assistant. There's not a better human out there than Travis Wolf. He actually comes to our workouts with us. He's there every Tuesday and Thursday mornings. He's got a kind of a rotation where he still goes into different colleges. I believe your guy's one of them, where he has different sessions with the guys. But he's been awesome. He is a member at Colonial, so we see him down there quite often. He has a Bible study for the kids every Wednesday, and I think they go to Chipotle, and he gets them a meal, and then they have a little scripture session. I can't imagine any program being as lucky as us, because I've really wanted our program to be well-rounded, and I think he gives us that being here with us. The way that Travis actually evolved with us is I had another guy. His name was Dana Ballinger, and Dana Ballinger was my volunteer assistant for over 20 years. And Dana, to this day, and I hear it daily from different people, I knew it, but he was an incredible instructor. He had a knack for teaching golf that nobody had, and he loved TCU, and he helped us to the very end. And he ended up about 3 years ago having a rare infection and passed away. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about Dana. But I also went to Travis and I said, Travis, you had a love for Dana. You had lessons from him forever. Would you like to try to fill his spot here for a while? And I know you have other responsibilities with other programs. You work for College Golf Fellowship. But I said, I don't want to take anything away from those other programs. I just want you to fill the role that Dana had. And he's been wonderful to the guys. The guys really like him. And he just kind of has this kind of bubbly magic personality, and that, is really kind of hard not to like.
Travis is a wonderful guy, and he'd be one of the guys you'd say, oh, that is a good guy to follow. Dana was just an incredible spiritual guy. He was an unbelievable instructor, sort of old school with his instruction, but in a great way. And we all miss Dana Ballinger. I know that. So you finally did hire an actual full-time assistant in Adrian Mork. And, Adrian's pretty impressive to have been as good a player. He won on the European Tour. He knows the game. He's a great communicator. But what do you think are his greatest strengths? And I know you've benefited from having him on your staff.
Well, I think the thing that is the best about Adrian is it kind of starts with his work ethic. I've never been to the office in the morning where I got here before he did. It doesn't matter if there'd be like a day I get up and say, I think I'm just going to get to the office early today and get some things done. Heck, I walk in here at 6:00 and Adrian's here. I go, Adrian, what are you doing? And I'll see different secretaries around, and they said, yeah, Adrian's been here for about 4 hours. He's just the hardest working, committed guy that you can ever have. But not only is he has an incredible rapport with the guys on the golf team, and he spends so much of his time and energy. I've never seen a guy that goes down and works with the guys one-on-one, and he'll take the TrackMan out, and they'll kind of have like little charts, and they'll figure out exactly, how far the guy hits his different clubs. I think what makes him so good is he's good at all that stuff. He's a great communicator. I think that he's been wonderful because he can back up everything he says. If he goes out and he plays with the guys, he's as good as the guys on the team. He can play for them. I wish they had in college golf where you could play your assistant, because that would really fill a hole for him. The guy, he shot 59 on a European tour event. But and to be honest with you, I've made this statement that TCU is going to be looking for a new head coach, and I know they've got a lot of guys that are going to be interviewing, a lot of people that would love to have the job, but I honestly don't believe they can find anybody that's as good as he is. I mean, they can go get a search committee and they can go interview them all. But in my opinion, I think Adrian Mork is the absolute best. No matter what his future holds, I think that he's a guy that's going to do well somewhere.
Yeah, he's a great guy. We have all got a lot of respect for Adrian and the job he's done since he's been there for you. So let's button this up with just I'm going to give some statistics, bullet points here on your career. You've won 8 conference championships. You've had 7 individual conference champions. 7 times you've been the conference coach of the year in 4 different conferences. Conference coach of the year in 4 different conferences. You're the only coach in NCAA history to accomplish that feat. 31 consecutive regional appearances, 26 All-America selections. You've had 6 teams finish in the top 10 at the NCAA championship, countless PGA Tour players, including Tom Hoagie and J.J. Henry and others. You've made it to 18 NCAA championships. I mean, Bill, I just gave the highlights, but that's a pretty incredible body of work there over 36 years. Congratulations first. But is there anything there you're most proud of?
Well, to be honest with you, I actually did this job and still do this job kind of out of a labor of love. But the thing that I am most proud of is I've been very fortunate through the years to have some incredible golfers, guys that had great work ethic, that came every day to give it their all. I was so lucky, though, to surround myself with so many different people. There's no way we would have had this success with, from the beginning, from Mike Holder letting me come work that golf camp to Tommy Moore, meeting guys like yourself and Bruce Hepler and Greg Sands and Dana, just all the different help that we had. Of all the accomplishments that I'm probably most proud of is the fact that we ended up going to 18 NCAA championships. One of the things that I love about college golf is that you get to go out there and play, and basketball is different because the coach sort of arbitrarily picks who's going to be the starting center and the starting guard. But in golf, you can actually let them go out there and play, and that was kind of always my motto: is scores don't lie. Let's go out and let them play for it. But I think just going to so many different NCAA championships, that's what I'm really proud of.
Well, I don't know how many coaches are coaching college golf right now. I could do some research that have been to 18 national championships. Not very many have been to that many. So very, very impressive. Very proud to have known you on this little journey of yours. And, but we're not through. You've got a whole spring semester that we're going to talk about here before you retire. But okay, in that 36 years of coaching at TCU, for the men's golf program, what's the biggest changes that you've seen, like things that you think have been very impactful in college golf?
Well, I would say most coaches wouldn't know this, but if you look way back when I first started some 30 some years ago plus, there was not such a thing as regionals. And I would say the biggest impact on college golf since I've been coaching, there's probably several, but one of them is definitely when they put in the NCAA regionals. And what I mean by that, in the beginning, when I first started, they have a committee and they would sit there and they would invite 24 teams to the national championship, or maybe it's 20, I don't know, but they had a set amount of teams, but it was very, very difficult to get into that top 24. And I was actually on the NCAA men's golf committee. Coach Holder was on it, and there were several other people on it. But we were talking about, like, how can we make college golf better? How can we make this better? And I think one of the comments by one of the coaches is that, well, if we could somehow include more teams and have more teams have the opportunity to make it to the NCAA tournament. And really, that's kind of how the regionals came into play, is it just coaches sitting around talking. And from that meeting, the NCAA was formed. And at the beginning, there were 3 regionals and 10 teams got to advance. So now 30 teams were going to get to go to the NCAA championship. And selfishly, I'm on that committee. And I'm thinking this is the greatest thing in the world for TCU. We can't get to that NCAA, but if we get to have regionals, then we have a chance to play our way in. All we got to do is finish top 10 there, which as time went on, I learned how hard that was. But it was like, at least you had a chance.
Well, yeah, I mean, it made it more competitive. It wasn't just a committee selecting teams, and you knew they got the best 10 teams in the country, surely, or 15. But as it went further into the selection process, you know that there were a lot of question marks. So if you could take that out of their hands by having an actual competition, that was better. Okay, anything else that's changed college golf coaching?
Well, I think the second thing that really changed in the beginning, and that was one thing we always had that was incredibly great. We have some incredible golf courses that the kids get to play here. Some great golf in Fort Worth. There's so much history. We've got Colonial Country Club, and you've got Shady Oaks and Mira Vista and Rivercrest and Ridgely. But what happened is about 15, 20 years ago, these different universities started building practice facilities, and you would start seeing them pop up, or different courses they would be like a clubhouse and a locker room and a lounge, and they just keep springing up. And I mean, my gosh, for the last 20 years, it seems like every year there's a different school that does something. So I would say the practice facilities at all these different universities popping up, that was a huge change. And just a lot of commitment from different universities to have a really good, solid golf program. And I think universities realized by having a good, solid golf program that would, just help out everything. And so I think that was a big change.
Okay. No, there's no question. I think that, anymore, bells and whistles or whatever you call it is really important to prospects and recruits, but it does show a commitment too. So that's great. Anything else? Other major changes?
Well, I'm sure there was a few others, but I think the one that's changed a lot and is going to change things. And I actually kind of think it's kind of exciting to see where it's all going to go. But I think this NIL, the name, image, and likeness, I think that coaches are going to see that's going to be a huge influence for these kids going forward. And I would say that you're going to see more and more programs and coaches and assistant coaches and athletic directors try to get creative to figure out how they can compete in that NIL world. And I was at the NCAA convention here for the last couple of days and talked to enough coaches. And so it's out there. It's not going away. And it's something that's going to make a huge impact. Where a recruit decides he wants to go is to depend on what kind of NIL deal that school is going to be able to put in front of him.
Yeah, I think you're right. That is going to be a big change. We're not sure how big a change it's going to be because it hasn't played itself out yet, but it will very soon. Okay. Well, Bill, you and I both have we're in off season right now, but we've got a spring schedule coming up. We start mid-February. We go to Laredo. Where do you guys start, and where does your spring schedule take you?
Well, our first three tournaments are going to be some real challenges for us. We entered the fall relatively good, but we've now got the hard part of our season coming up. We're actually our first tournament of the year, and it's something that we've actually done for, I don't know, probably 30 of the last 31 years. The only year we didn't do it was the COVID year, but we're going to the Big Island in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to go over there and play, and it's always a kind of a real team bonding and fun experience because we actually go to Costco and buy groceries, and each night we kind of barbecue out and have the kids make it a real kind of bonding experience for them. So we're going to Hawaii. It's called the Big Island. And then our second tournament is we're going out to Palm Springs to the Prestige. And it's a tournament that has 24 teams in it. And last year we didn't play very well in it. But this is a tournament that it's important because you got 24 teams. If you finish pretty high, you can get a lot of wins, and you finish 24th, it can kind of bury you. So,
well, we're not going to see in Hawaii, but we will see it Prestige for sure.
Well, it's a great tournament. I'm sure you've been there before, but I love the way they do the tournament because there's 24 teams, and you get a morning wave and you get an afternoon wave. So it's sort of set up like the NCAA tournament. And then the last round, they have the top 12 teams get to play in the morning. So I'm assuming you've been there before, but it's an awesome venue, and there's some really good teams there. So that'll be fun. And then our third tournament, and I know you've been to before, but we're going to Southern Highlands, and we're playing in Las Vegas's tournament. And we've been to that tournament. I've been really fortunate, but probably for, I don't know, the last 30 years, we've been almost every single time. I've had a great relationship with their coach there, and we've always got invited. But that's a real challenge because the weather can be no telling in Vegas, and the golf course is really hard.
You know, I've taken some teams out to that. I remember one year 39 over par won as a team in 3 rounds. I mean, yeah, it can be a challenge, but that's one of the toughest spring schedule starts that I think I've ever heard of. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's probably too hard, but we're going to do that. And we're actually ending it at the Aggie Invitational. It's been a few years since we went down there, but we're going to go to their tournament. You might be there too.
We're there as well, yes.
So, yeah, that's kind of what we're looking forward to. And, you know, obviously our goal is to try to, play well enough to make it to regionals. I feel like that we've got the players to do it, but, you know, the thing is there's so many good programs out there and so much good competition that, we're going to have to play well to make it.
I think everybody has to play well. It's a day and time where there's enough parity in college golf where the 60th, 70th, 80th ranked team in the country has a chance to win a golf tournament, which is great. It's great for college golf, but it does make it tougher to advance. So we'll see you actually 3 times before, and actually counting the Big 12 championship. So I'll see you a bunch this spring, Bill.
Our conference tournament's going to be at Prairie Dunes, and I love going to Prairie Dunes. It's you never know what you're going to get there. It's an awesome golf course. The Big 12 does a great job. I mean, I honestly think the Big 12 has the best championship there is, and I actually think it's what's really helped us a lot. The best we have finished is second, but just going there and playing 72 holes against the absolute best teams on great venues, I think it's helped prepare us for the years that we did get to go to regionals, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love that tournament, and guys, we have great rules officials. We've got a rules official that follows every hole, and this the whole thing about the Big 12 is awesome.
Yeah, it's great. I think we're both fortunate to be in that conference with 3 great golf courses and all the great teams that we get to play against. All right, well, Bill, I just want to say thanks. But before I do let you go, you're going to be retired after the NCAA championship this year. So are you making the retirement plans, or is Margaret making the retirement plans? How's that work?
All I know is my wife told me, she said, when you retire, you're not going to be staying around the house all day. So I'm going to have to find something to do because she's not going to let me just sit in there all day long and do nothing. But the thing that I like looking forward to the most is my daughter, Kelly. And she went to several Oklahoma State golf camps and played golf at TCU, but she and her husband are married and they live out in San Diego, and they got 2 of the cutest little kids. One's like 3 and the other one's 1. So I'm actually going to figure out a way to try to sneak out there and see them as much as I can. But I love to get to see the family and seeing the little ones.
And there's plenty of good golf in San Diego. Maybe you'll have to take your golf clubs.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Bill, thanks a lot. I hope you and Margaret have a Merry Christmas, and I look forward to seeing you this spring. And congratulations again on an amazing career. And I look forward to you adding to that career this spring.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you having me on. You're somebody that I've always looked up to. I think you've done an incredible job. I've followed you from the beginning, and I loved it when you were in high school and you won all those state titles, and then winning the NCAA at Oklahoma State, and then winning it again at Alabama. And I really hope that you guys have that opportunity to win it at Baylor, because you're the best in the business. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Bill. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.